All right. Welcome to the Sewer Authority Midcoastside Board of Directors regular meeting. It is 7:02 p.m. Monday, April 22nd, 2014. Roll call, please.
Director Kowalczyk.
Here.
Director Alfano.
Here.
Chair Harvey.
Here.
Director Boyd.
Here.
Director Warren.
Present.
Director Lohman.
Here.
All right, let's go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, public comment, oral communication, not on the agenda. We have a public out there.
Hi, public.
All right, okay, Lou.
Hi.
Any other comments?
I have
Oral
two things.
communication?
At our last meeting, I announced that GCSD was going to have a special meeting on October 2nd. That didn't work out, so it looks like it's going to be October 9th, let's hope. And that'll be a special meeting with open session, just Parks and Rec stuff. And then the regular meeting on the 16th will be primarily sewer stuff. And I have something else, but booted up my laptop the wrong way, and I don't know if I can pull it up on my cell phone quick enough. Kellex Nelson of RCD sent out email asking to forward it around as appropriate, basically saying that the rains are coming and asking people to clean up pet waste in their backyards before it rains so that it doesn't get washed into the ocean, because some previous recent study shows that that's a significant source of the ocean pollution. So the Resource Conservation District is asking people to do that before it rains.
Right, that's the source of the virus that attacked the sea otters. There's a fatal virus that was killing off sea otters off Monterey. And they back sourced it to kitty litter being thrown into the toilet. Wow. And then the viruses from the cat.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, also.
That's a
So
serious problem.
to throw your kitty litter in the garbage, not down the toilet. All right, anything else? All right, if not, we'll go on to closed session. So we'll take a break here and go on to closed session. Thank you. We'll have a recess.
Interest in what they wrote, but the fact of the matter is that's our job. And so we took it and we worked it over a bit and captured additional things in it that represent the interests of our owners, our member agencies. And that's the point of having something like this, is to make sure that you've got it all on the table and that you find enough to agree about to be able to proceed. There were a number of things that were simply not addressed in their version that got addressed in later versions. And to some degree, I would agree that it got wordy along the way. But if there was a material issue, I didn't hear them spell it out. They just wanted, their one representative wanted something that read easier. And that's fine, but not if it means that we leave some big things unaddressed. Now, let's drop back for a minute and talk about what it is we're trying to accomplish. Because we've got agreement among the parties on the committee and the two water agencies that have been joining us for the meetings. We've got agreement that we've got a project that we would like to get done. We'd like to get it done as quickly as possible. And that means we need to stay focused like a laser on that and not let ourselves get distracted by other issues, with the caveat that we don't want to close the door on subsequent opportunities that we already know that we have some interest in. So we would like to, and one of these, to give you a simple one where CCWD and Monterra both would like to see something happen. If we're able to get recycled water produced here, if we can find a way, we'd like to get some up to Granada. and points north. Points north being of interest to Montera, the other water agency here on the coast. So whatever we do in doing project one, we don't want to make any choices that say, you know, something about the way we've done that would keep it from being practical or cost effective to do a follow-on. So it's not about tying ourselves up with the complications of what a project two might be, but being attentive to those things and saying, let's not close the door. For example, if we were to pick a treatment technology that required a whole lot of construction and a very specified footprint, pouring a lot of concrete to get the quantity that's needed for project one, which we're all agreed on. And then we decided we needed more capacity to do project two, and we had to do lots more excavation, lots more concrete pouring and whatnot. If we had chosen a different technology, we might simply be able to bolt on some extra capacity instead of having to go through a whole lot more construction if we choose our technology wisely. So it's that kind of thing in principle where acknowledging some of the other things that we want to get done is important in our early agreement so that we can act rapidly on project one without closing the door on project two. It's not to bind it by project two. To be real clear, it's about making sure that we don't get so much in a hurry for project one that we get stupid about project two. I don't think we're going to, and I think I have a lot of confidence that with a very little effort we can find ways to get these interests into this principles of agreement so that we can then go back to our respective boards and say, this is how we'd like to work together. I don't think we're going to have trouble getting that agreement. But the original draft is a little oversimple, and
Well,
Could you, hold on, could you tell me what project number one is?
project number one is getting water across Pillowcedars Creek to a connection with Ocean Colony Partners for provision down to the golf courses. That's
it's
project
basically
one.
running a pipe to our
Right.
fence.
Okay.
At that point, CCWD connects. They have to run from there to the wells. That's their part of the project. We have to get to the fence.
Okay, Alan, go ahead.
Well, here's where I'm confused, Scott. At the meeting, I thought we all agreed we wanted to go with the simplest version of the principles, the oldest version.
No, we didn't agree to that.
Well,
We
hang on,
agreed to
hang
take a
on.
look at it.
Rick can tell me if I'm crazy here. So,
You're crazy. Yeah, well, which Rick?
yeah, I know you will.
Double up on
So,
it. Gang up.
so, the point in time you guys were asking for was Friday. This was Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So I went home Tuesday night after the meeting, put this into Word form, sent it out to both of you because you wanted to edit it.
Right,
Those are your words, as I recall. And I also sent the other versions just for reference,
right.
and I heard nothing back.
That's correct, and let me just tell you right up front, work got extraordinarily busy, maybe you've seen some of why, but I spent several hours in looking at it, and I got started on it by reading over the stuff you'd sent, and then I went and I found the original documents, so I had it in PDF format, not scanned, but something that was actually text from our prior meetings where we had actually heard and discussed and voted on these drafts. And started looking at it in more detail. And honestly, I got hung up on, there was just too much there to sit there and solo try to do the pulling from one to get into the other, either from the more advanced form back into the simple form, or simple form back into, or to try to simplify the advanced form. And so, and I apologize that I didn't communicate well on this, and I will just put that right on the table that I did not. But what we've got is, if we take this back to our agencies now, I think it's gonna get noodled on pretty hard. And what I'd like to do is get to something where we actually have we had talked in the committee with our guests from the two agencies, the two water agencies, that we'd like to have some principles agreement so we can start to move forward. We'd also had some discussion just amongst ourselves about funding and how we imagine this working. And that's something where CCWD has talked a lot about writing the one check. When you look at what they've written here in their draft, it actually doesn't read that way. And so we would need to get some kind of clarity on what it is we're talking about.
Wait, hold on. When you say their drafts, well, I've got two drafts here. I've got
Yep.
draft September 22nd, 2014. That's what you, the committee came up with, correct?
The direction that Tuesday night was to take the oldest version,
The old version, which is 2009.
2009, send that out to the committee members. Rick, am I repeating what we all said? And that by that Friday, we would come back with any edits,
Okay.
which would be then, we would agree, bring it to the meeting tonight. And our goal was to get Sam to agree to the basic principles.
And Alan held up his end of the bargain, and I got hung up on trying to get from there to where I could get you edits that we could then discuss and agree on. So what we don't have at this point is agreement about what this ought to say. And let me point to a really simple thing about this draft dated today. You won't find Montero mentioned in it. That ain't gonna fly under any circumstances, and we all know that, and this isn't news.
What do you want to say for Montero in here?
Well, there's actually, if you want to know, take a look at some of the other versions where we actually worked that in pretty well, and none of it was in any way binding on a project to try to hold it up. Rather, it was more about expressing the interests and holding in reserve the ability to follow up with other things.
Okay, then how about we take out the latest version where it says jurisdiction. Sam will be the producer of recycled water, period. CCWD and MWSD will be the distributors of recycled water to all recycled water customers within their respective areas.
Wait a second.
How about we add that?
I don't see a jurisdiction.
No, there
authority.
isn't in the old version, the original version. So I'm saying if that's a concern, let's add that.
If I could just ask the version, in the packet, we have I assume it's there's no date on the one that's in the packet here?
There's
I don't know if that's the
okay,
one
let's walk through it.
There's three in the
Let's
packet.
walk through it. There's a draft of today. There is a draft from CCWD, November 2009, right? Scrolling down as fast as I can, there's a draft of January 2010,
Okay.
and that's the last one. Now, there was one more, and I actually have a bunch of those pulled out, but I don't have them collected to make any, to actually help the conversation.
So you're saying your concern is we don't address Montero?
Well, Al, look at the 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph in the January 2010 version. I think some version of that is what Scott is saying needs to be in.
But it's not just that. I mean, I picked an easy one, right?
Hold on a minute, hold on, everybody. So who is on the ad hoc committee? It's
Well, it
Alan.
hasn't changed. It's the three of us.
I'm just going through this. So we have some confusion here. Let me ask a question. Alan, when you said, when you read that first paragraph, you meant, it says authority, right?
This is the original one that said authority.
Okay.
In the latest version, they have something called jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction.
And I think what's-
I don't have the
In
jurisdiction.
whose latest version? We
No,
don't
Yeah,
have
you
that
do.
here.
Well, it should be the very last, maybe it's double-sided, so
That's the one I'm
perhaps,
looking at right
perhaps
here.
on the back of,
Do you know how to use?
manager. This one.
Wait, hold on.
Jurisdiction.
no, it's right.
Okay, Rob.
I just wanted to point out, if you go to page 90 of 129, there's a staff report. On the back side of that page is the third agreement, which is dated March 22nd, 2010.
I don't see
That
that.
stuff is part
I
of,
don't
It's
see
part
it.
of that was
I
the
don't
text
see
that we
it
had
there.
available, so that has that rolled in
You see the
behind
March
that cover page.
22nd, 2010 staff report.
Yeah.
On the back of that,
There's no date.
in front of that is a date. On the back of that is,
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to, and it was almost an identical quote of what Alan
that's
said.
March 15th, 2010. If I read the number on the bottom left, right?
It just basically,
Oh,
in
3, 1,
my
5,
opinion, just
10.
inserts Montero in there also,
Yeah.
and.
All right.
It's got, if we
I
add
kind of
that
like that
portion,
version.
if we add that portion, does that address what you're concerned with?
I'm actually curious, having read through these, what's of concern to CCWD about the latest version? Because all we really got in the meeting with CCWD in Montero was that CCWD wanted the simple one, but they didn't give us any particulars. And what he argued for was simplicity, and I'm all for that.
What?
But simplicity for simplicity's sake, after all of this work that we went through to try to find something that is well-rounded and thoughtful, there's little question to me that the principles of agreement that we've got in that most recent one from March 15th of 2010 is actually much more thoughtfully assembled. And so if there's a problem there, I would say, let's go back to CCWD and find out what they'd like to smooth off here. If there's a rough edge, let's figure that out. I don't see anything here that gets in the way of
Well, there
project
is.
one.
There is. For example, if we take verbatim the most recent version, we get down to number 6, financing. We're talking about grant and low interest, we're getting into the details of how we may do this. And our agreement was at our meeting to keep this as simple as possible. And then as we move down the road, if we discover we need to, let's just say the bond passes this November and there's some grant money. Fine, we can adjust for that. But we said from the get-go, this was gonna be financed without grants or anything else on the surface. If that changes, we can adjust to that. But I mean, from the 3 agency standpoint, I don't know what's wrong with the basic principles. If we add in the part you want about Montero.
All right,
Well,
hold on.
I can address a number of these things. Like if you look at number 7, facilities ownership. In the original document, there's nothing.
Number 7?
Same
Facility
page.
ownership,
Stick with
Sam
me.
will all treatment.
Which date?
Go back
We're
to
still
the one
talking
you
about the
just
March
had.
15th, 2010, at the very end of the
Look it
packet.
over. Was it in the back?
You mean March 22nd?
Has the other numbers on the back.
I'm looking at,
Page
March-
89.
page 92 of 129.
Well, March 22nd, please.
Okay, I'm working off of the 031510 at the bottom left of the page, which looks to me like that was a March 15th draft.
Yeah, that's the one I have.
Facilities ownership, one of the things that the original document didn't contemplate was anything about who pays for the maintenance and who controls the maintenance. This is an important term, it matters, and
Well, it's addressed in the original principle. Sam will be responsible for O&M of treatment facilities up to the point of delivery. CCW will operate maintenance facilities downstream. Now, if we want to add on to this later, I don't see a problem
so
with that.
you're seeing a problem here on 6 about financing. Is there any other problem you see here that is material to CCWD?
That's what I was gonna bring up also.
You
with
said
number 6.
on item 6, financing, you saw that to be a problem. Now, my reading of it is, we'd like to do some grants, and if we do grants, we'd like to collaborate on it, but it allows for other funding mechanisms.
Okay, we have-
As you may recall, as we discussed after the other agencies left, we discussed things that we might want to do in the funding that have to do with our larger and Sam's specific interests.
Which we can address once we get into our capital projects. But we're not ready to.
No, I think we actually have to address that up front.
Let me back up. This to me is the reason recycled water got derailed before.
Oh, let's,
No, let me finish. Scott, let me finish.
I'll hear you out, but then I'm
Scott,
gonna
let me
have my
finish.
turn.
This is the reason recycled water is so difficult, because we get these parochial interests about wanting to do things a certain way. You said to me, take the simplest version. You said that to me, I went back and gave it to you, I've got nothing. I'm saying, let's take the simple version, you wanna add jurisdiction in there for Montero? Fine. Let's get that, each agency, and get each agency to agree to the principles. Once we're agreed to that, we can go into more detail. We can begin to talk about financing, hiring engineers, etc. But let's get agreement to the basic principles. Let's not complicate things right now. That's what I left the meeting with. Rick, am I dreaming?
Well, I think it's
Is that
sort of
what we
in,
said?
I think it's sort of in between that you were gonna send these out,
That's right.
which you did, and you did
Yeah.
a great job on that. I somehow in my millions of job transition emails, either I missed that or I think I saw some discussions about adding CCW Montera back in. Whenever it said CCWD, we should basically have CCWD and WSD. And then, after been looking at this, I thought the latest version basically pretty much said all of that. And that's why I was sort of agreeing with Scott. I think the financing thing has to be reworked totally.
Well, it has to be
Because financing
reworked some, but I don't,
I mean, it's got to say something different.
the notion of if we go for grants, that we try to help each other go for grants is this is hardly insurmountable. What I wanted to make sure that we got in front of our board, I believe it's necessary for us to consider that we as an agency, look, CCWD is proposing to pay for the whole amount. Put money up front, and in so doing facilitate the rapid accomplishment of this project. That is certainly one way to go, and one way that I agree would make this go very quickly. I'm going to recommend that we as an agency give serious consideration to whether or not we wouldn't rather control the funding for a good chunk of what happens on our facility and becomes our long-term O&M obligation. And I know we have the capacity to put up some money, and I think it would help. And I think it would also help keep the future open for additional beneficial uses that we might want to get from that facility. For example, if we build just what they need for the water demands that they have in mind, keep in mind there's nothing about this project which is X gallons per day 24/7. It doesn't work that way. It's a maximum of 800,000 gallons on a very small single-digit number of days, usually in the hot weather months between May and October. And that is the peak of what their demand might be. If we built for that peak, most of the plant would sit idle a good chunk of the year. Most of the hours of the year, it wouldn't be doing its job because they can't use it. They can't water during the day. They don't run their sprinklers while the golfers are out there.
Didn't we discuss this?
As with all of these folks, we didn't have this particular discussion, which I think is vital that we have. For us to do this job well, I think we need to consider the possibility that we need to put up some of this agency's money for some of what happens on our facility. That's not to turn a nose up at CCWD.
This doesn't preclude us from doing that.
Let's stop.
Right?
By the way, I need that gavel. If you give me that gavel.
No, hey, wait.
Oh, wait,
Jim,
hold on.
Jim, no, listen. A lot of work and effort went to get us to this point. And the goal was to have us take and agree to very simple principles tonight. And now we're getting off track. And we're making things complicated.
Oh, wait, hold on. So, Rick Kowalczyk, I'm going to hear what you have to say, and then I'm going to speak after this.
Yes. 2 points. One, to Scott's previous point, that we should have a skin in the game. I think
That's okay.
that's something that I want him to have the gap. Give him the big hammer.
Thank you.
I think that may have merit, but these principles do not preclude that. And I'm a little concerned that I don't want to sit here in a meeting and watch the recycled committee have their meeting, right? So my suggestion is if you didn't get it figured out, then go have another meeting and figure it out and bring it back. But I think just to start a project moving forward, knowing that we're collaborating and we have to be flexible in that process, you cannot predefine everything. And if you do, you're tying your hands and you won't have success. So I don't want to watch a meeting of the recycle subcommittee. I think that should have been settled before we got here. I heard that it was, and I heard it's not. I don't think our principals should say what we're going to pay for or not pay for. If they're saying they're going to pay for it, let's start with that as the premise. And as a premise is how do we have control for what goes on in our facility? We'll have a requirement that has to meet certain standards that meets our expectations. Let's figure that out. But I don't want to watch. You know what? I didn't want to be on this committee Because I don't want to watch, it's just,
Okay, well, hold
go
on.
figure this stuff out and come
Hang
back.
on, some
Wait,
of
wait,
this
wait,
is hard
Scott,
work.
Scott,
Some of this is
Scott,
hard work.
Scott,
And
Scott,
But I heard it was done.
Scott, okay. no,
you
wait,
heard
wait,
from one member that
Scott,
it was done. I'm sorry,
Scott.
you hadn't heard
Scott.
that here, and honestly, you
Call
gotta
to
be.
order, please, Scott. Okay, Jim, tell me if I'm overstepping my bounds here. So here's what we're gonna do, okay? The recycled water committee is going to meet again, and one of the problems is that we need you to meet this month. I'd like you to report back to the chair. Wait, Scott.
Whoa, it's
Scott,
like,
Scott.
chairing is one thing, being in
Scott?
charge is another. And
Scott?
I'm gonna have to
I
resist.
warned you,
this.
I warned you about this. So we're going to, so.
You warned me
recycle-
about
I did
this.
warn you about this. The recycled water committee is gonna report to the chair, right? You're gonna have your meeting, and before you report to anybody else, you're gonna report to the chair.
Oh, no.
The chair?
No, I'm sorry,
Jim,
Jim.
tell me, help me if I'm
Well, I
wrong.
don't
Jim?
know what this is what's all about here. What are we,
I
I mean, I think the idea
That's
of going
5
back,
votes.
because I think Rick's idea that this is not a meeting of the recycling committee. If you need another one of those meetings, probably ought to go back and have this discussion at the recycling committee.
Okay.
What you do from there.
I actually have a proposal to get us out of here tonight with an agreement. I just don't think CCWD is gonna get exactly what they wanted, but you've got 2 members of the committee who showed up saying, the last form is actually pretty decent. Let's talk about that with them and hammer that into shape. They're gonna have an issue with something, fine.
Which
but
date, what are you referring
The
to?
last one.
The March 10th.
March 20th. Okay, so the recycle committee is going to meet again.
No, I'm actually proposing that we move forward with this and we sit down with the 2 water agencies and say,
Moving
let's take
forward-
some standing.
Moving forward with what, Scott?
Okay, I need
don't
to listen.
understand what you're moving forward with.
The last form, the one from March of 2010, which this agency actually worked very hard on and worked to keep a very even keel in hand to make sure that it was acceptable to everybody involved. This document had nothing to do with what happened after that to recycled water. This document was in pretty good shape, and we never heard word one about anybody having any issue with what it said. What happened where there was issue had to do with who wanted to and who did not want to sign on with the proposal that went to Jackie Spears' office.
All right, okay, so if the 3 members of the recycle water committee agree to that, that's fine. If you don't, then you'll be directed to go back to your
Actually,
meeting.
we have the full board here, and I'm gonna recommend and put forward this version and say, not to disregard in any way, but to take back something that we think has substance and thoughtful preparation in it, that we take this back to them and find out what, if any, issues they have with this, so that we can take something that has.
No, that's the wrong way to do it. We have to give them a final document that 3 of us agree upon, okay?
No, we got a full board.
You want to do it right now?
We got a full
Well,
board
I
right
have
here.
some things that.
Wait, hold on a minute, hold on
I
a
don't
minute.
think
Hold on a
this is the
minute,
place to do it.
hold on a minute. We need to have the 3 recycling committee members agree as to what we're gonna do.
No.
Now, if the 3 of you don't agree, the board's not gonna consider this.
Since when does a committee get to lead the full board around by the nose?
You either have a committee or not, Scott, and the committee was supposed to have brought a recommendation to this board. If you can't do that, you're gonna have another meeting.
There was no indication
Right.
prior to tonight there was anything wrong with this item. Right or wrong? I'm sorry.
No.
Did anybody say to me there was
Alan,
something wrong?
I'm sorry that you read in more than what the silence meant, but the
Okay,
silence was
okay.
silence.
Okay, wait. Okay, well, there's one final comment, and we're gonna leave this issue. So,
No, I haven't
yes.
had a chance to say anything
Jim,
yet,
I-
Jim.
I-
No, we're not
I-
gonna
I
leave it until I
strongly
get to say
disagree
what
with
I
how
wanna
you're running
say.
this.
I'm gonna direct the recycling committee to meet again and come back to the board at the next meeting.
That's fine, let's meet again.
Hey, Jim,
Yes.
meet
you are
again.
chair, you
I-
are
I'm
not boss
chair.
of this board,
I'm
and
chair, we're gonna
I
move on.
strongly
No,
reject.
Jim, I have not had a
We're gonna
chance,
move on.
Jim, I have not had a chance to comment on this item.
Jim,
We're
let
not
let
moving
her
on.
talk and then let's
Okay,
vote.
Leonard, you can talk, and then we're gonna move on, all right? Go ahead and talk, Leonard.
I have multiple concerns about what's not in the principles that are being considered. One of which is, and this dates back to when the discussions with Bruce first started, that CCWD will not mark it up so that they make a profit on it. They will charge their costs, which means what they pay us plus their cost of doing their end of it. So I think that needs to be in here. And I got, way back when, 5 years ago, from Chuck Duffy, one of his plants, I think, does recycled water. And the agreement they have, it's a similar situation, there's no JPA involved, but it's a similar situation with the sewer agency running the plant, providing the recycled water to the water agency for distribution. And there's a provision in that contract that says if the water agency increases the price to their customers of the recycled water, half of that price increase gets paid directly to the sewer agency. And the reason for that is to try and limit the markup that the water agency charges and pockets. So I think that's an important thing that needs to be in here somehow. I'm not prepared to specify the language, but
Okay.
something.
So-
I'm not finished, Jim.
Okay, tell me when you're finished, Leonard. Tell me when you're finished, go ahead.
Can we have an agenda item at the next meeting to do officer elections?
I'll second that.
I'm serious. I'm really serious.
You're
Go ahead.
overreaching this
You know
rule.
something?
Let Leonard, why don't you
Go ahead
finish?
and finish, Leonard.
Maybe what I wrote is really only 2 items. The other one, and I don't know if this goes in the agreement or if we have other permit conditions somewhere else that handles this. I'm open to any way at all that addresses this, but the end result is I want an absolute prohibition that CCWD cannot create new connections out of the water that's freed up from providing recycled water to big customers. In other words, they can't take that 500,000 gallons a day that OCP is no longer putting on the golf course and say, now we can go out and build another 1,000 houses. That's not going to happen. And if CCWD thinks that they can do that, then recycled water is never going to happen. They must be, one way or another, I don't care how, permit restrictions or something, they must be completely prevented from creating new connections out of this, with the exception of getting people off of wells.
Okay, so it's obvious that the board will not be, cannot agree.
I-
So, wait, let me finish, Scott. Can I make a statement without you interrupting, please? Wait, so, it's obvious?
Jim,
Let
how
me
many
finish.
times have you cut me off
Let
in
me
this
fi-
discussion
let me
tonight?
finish this
How many
statement.
times have you cut me off?
Let
in
me,
this
I'm the
discussion?
chair, I'm gonna finish my statement, okay, Scott? It's obvious that the board's not gonna be agreeing on this tonight. Does the board wish to continue discussion on it?
I have a proposal that we take this principles of agreement as drafted, take it back to CCWD, and see what we need to address for them to be comfortable with it. And I do that, I make this proposal because, one, it's not the committee's job to do this board's job. The committee's job is to bring back something to the board that the board finds that it can agree on, because the whole purpose here is to say, Sam's cool with this. Well, this is Sam. And Rick and I both looked at this and said, there is more good work in this last version than in the first version that addresses a whole bunch of issues. Let's take this, let's sit down with them, see where they may have an issue with this.
Why did you not bother to communicate that prior to tonight?
I have been working roughly 18-hour days, 7 days a week. And I said earlier, and I'll repeat it, my apologies for after having spent a few hours with the documents that Friday night and the following Saturday, that I didn't communicate to you a summary of the issues I had with it. That is my fault, mea culpa, and I do apologize.
And based on that, let me make a motion.
Wait, hold on.
We direct the
Before you make a
recycle water
motion,
committee to
Rick-
meet again.
Rick wanted to say something. Wait a minute.
I'm sorry, but I'd really like to finish this thought out so you can decide whether or not you think that it's a good idea or a
It's
bad
not gonna
idea.
fly tonight, guaranteed. It ain't flying tonight. We're not gonna vote on something with the committee never even sat and discussed. It ain't gonna happen tonight, Scott.
So we're gonna hold up this process.
You're holding up the process because you never got back to me.
I,
Scott,
yeah,
accept it. You had weeks
I
to
put
get
it out
back
on
to
the
me.
table. I
You
understand.
had weeks to get back to me, no phone call, no email. Now, if you would've got back to me, we could have adjusted this and had a principles ready we could vote on. We don't. We need to sit back down and meet again and get this ready for the board.
Okay, so would the committee agree to meet and come
Yes.
back to?
One thing
Yes.
I wanna be
Can
real
you Move
clear,
on, please.
one thing I wanna be real clear on, because I find it's been tempting in the discussions so far. CCWD and Montero both have representatives at the table when we're doing the joint meetings. I'm very concerned, also OCP has been at one of the meetings. I'm very concerned that I'm not hearing enough about Sam's interests in this and how we're discussing this. And honestly, a lot of what I'm hearing put forward is already being said almost verbatim by CCWD. I really want to have an active, engaged discussion amongst the SAM agency members about Sam's interests here so that we don't find out later that we forgot to talk about our parts in this.
Well, if the committee would do that job for us and
Yes.
present the information, we could do that.
Let's set a date for the committee to meet.
So in.
That's a
in
committee's
this-
job.
Well, we actually did discuss the potential benefit, and I'm sorry I had to ask people to stay after the other agencies left last time, and I'm glad you agreed to do that. There we had a discussion about what happens if we put some money up for this, and part of that is, we know that we have a track record of getting some projects done for far less money than other people say it has to be done. And to your concern about what happens with the cost of water for OCP, OCP's been extremely clear about the top line that they can afford to go, and anything beyond that, this project's infeasible. Anything that we can do in driving spending on our own to keep the cost down lowers that cost for that water. Whatever's financed, the less that's put up for it, the less that's financed, the less it takes to pay for it every single year.
Okay.
If SAM is not driving on trying to keep that cost down and doing our part to keep that cost down, I don't think we're doing our job.
All right, Scott.
And I think we put the
Rick,
whole project at risk.
Rick, what night can we meet? I'm open to
We have a
meet.
date already set.
Hmm?
We have a date set.
You wanna wait till the 6th?
I can't do anything else this week.
Okay, so the 6th.
Okay,
so-
October 6th.
Thank you, Recycled Water Committee. Well, we're all done, we're moving on to the next.
Jim,
Yeah, no, we're moving on to the next, you've already had your comment.
well,
We're moving on to the next item.
Jim, I
Thank you
have
very
another
much.
thing that I forgot before.
You know something, you can save it for the next time we bring this up.
No, it has to be
We
before
can-
the committee
Jim,
meets.
Jim, attorney, can you help me?
It has to-
Point of order. Point of order.
Jim, you're failing to have your board go with you. And
You
this
can-
this
you can
reflects
bring
the
up-
style in which you are
We'll have
conducting the meeting.
future agenda items for a new chair
need to-
later,
I need to,
right now.
I do
I
ask
need
that we
to
have that on
mention
the,
this to the
I
committee
am asking you
members.
to have that on the
I've
next
heard
agenda.
that, Scott.
I need to mention this to the committee members here before their next meeting. Because it's a Brown Act violation if I do it outside of this meeting. And, you know, maybe this has already been handled, I don't know, I haven't heard, so I just wanna, you know, some reassurance that the way you're structuring this, that if GCSD is in a position to ask for some amount of water, and it would have to be trucked up for, you know, the duration, you know, say we wanna, you know, water some parkland, like the Burnham Strip, that we will be able to get some of the water. It won't be any major percentage, but I just wanna make sure that the principles you work out allows us the opportunity to get some of that water if we decide we want it.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Are you through? Okay,
Yes.
so we're moving on to the next agenda item, which is number 7, General Manager's Report. Rob, I apologize, go ahead.
In the interest of just brevity on this, if there's any questions from the board, I'd be happy to entertain them. The only thing I wanted to highlight on this is on the anticipated items for the October agenda. We had a mainline, basically a push camera demonstration up here last week, and it's something that I think there's going to be some value moving forward. I may be coming to the board next month with a request for authorization for about $10,000 to get basically push camera inspection capability.
What does push camera mean?
It's about a 330-foot long fiber optic camera that you push down into sewer lines that has a light on the end of it with a recording ability, and gives you the ability to look and see what kind of cleaning job you've done. So if we had a blockage or roots or something like that, or we hit an obstruction that we felt with the cleaning, with the flushing truck, we could pull out, we could run the camera down and take a look at it and see what we've got. We've had a few issues where we've run up against things and we haven't been certain where they're at, and our camera equipment's been down since before I got here. And it looks like we're having a couple of incidents that might have been able to have been mitigated or prevented if we had camera equipment. And so with that heads up, I just wanted to let you know that I might be coming back for the board for a request with that. And with the price on it, I think is pretty reasonable, and it's also portable, so we can take it from, we can put it in anything from a pickup truck to carry it on our new vacuum truck or the old flusher truck without doing a serious refit. That's some of the quotes we got on refitting the broken camera on this truck ran $30,000 or so, and I think this is a much more economical solution that we could implement very quickly that would help maybe mitigate some of the SSO issues we've had recently. So other than that, that was all I wanted to really touch on.
Thank you. Attorney's report, Jim?
Mr. Chairman, thanks. Recognizing the hour, I'll make it very brief. You have in your agenda packet my report from the CASA meeting, and if there's any questions on it, I'd be happy to summarize those. I have another item too to report, but I think pretty self-explanatory, one of which, the Public Records Act request on the second page. We have had that very same request here for the email addresses of all of our employees who are members of CalPERS. We wrote them back and asked them why they need the information. And what we're seeing as a collective group down at CASA is sort of a pushing of what can be done under the Public Records Act that some people think is beyond what was the scope of the Public Records Act. And in this case, it turns out that this is an ability to try to market a database to somebody running for office at CalPERS. And so you can say, well, so what? That doesn't make any difference, except there gets to be a point where there's an equity problem here, and we're dealing with it, trying to deal with it collectively at CASA as an attorneys group, and I'll just keep it posted.
But Jim, hasn't the attorneys group looked at it as the Public Records Act says identifiable records have to be disclosed? What's the identifiable record when they say, give us all the email addresses? That's not specifying an identifiable record, right. So the agencies should tell them buzz off and submit a proper Public Records Act request.
Well, we're a little polite, more polite way we tried that, so.
Well, GSD's previous attorney said, go pound sand.
Okay. And then the other one is, I wanted to point out to you guys, this last one on page 2, the EPA settlement agreement with East Bay Mud and several East Bay communities. And I'm bringing that to your attention because that started as an enforcement action against East Bay Mud. But then East Bay Mud receives wastewater from about 7 different public agencies over in the East Bay. And when this thing finished, each of those member agencies ended up as a part of that settlement agreement. So that each of those agencies, and I'm thinking when I'm listening to this, how this impacts over here, and that is we have SAM, we also have contributing member agencies, so that EPA is looking more broadly than just looking at the discharger, in that case, East Bay Mud, in our case, SAM. So that's just for your information. The other matter I wanted to report, at the last meeting, there was a question came up about certain disparagement concerns, and that some people were saying things inappropriate against others. And so the question was, some people, outside consultants were perhaps saying things that perhaps shouldn't have been said. I don't know what the facts are. But I looked, you asked to look into the agreements we have with respect to anti-disparagement. I also talked to the manager. There's nothing in our contracts that have any kind of an anti-disparagement kind of a concept. And to our knowledge, collectively, we have been unable to find other public contracts where we have sort of an anti-disparagement kind of a concept. Having said that, I got, well, and what I did find was when you settle lawsuits sometime, you will have what I would call an anti-disparagement paragraph in a settlement of a lawsuit. And so my question is, I don't know how far you want to pursue this, whether you want to just, I think there's an easy answer here, and I'll get to that in a minute, but one thing you could do is have a policy to deal with this. Another is you can put some kind of a provision in every contract, but I'm telling you, that's just not something you see typically in public agency contracts. Like I say, one alternative would be to put it in a policy that you would have here, how you would enforce that, how you would police that. You could spend, you'd have to hire somebody else just to deal with that kind of stuff. The other
That's a
concern.
question, Jim. If it's a policy, then we can have a policy that says this is our expectation of our vendors. Our vendors can be aware of our expectation, and our policy may say something like that. We at our discretion could, and we always can at our discretion terminate the contract. But it just could be a signal our expectations, and I'd be comfortable with that, just going that far, send that signal. And maybe this could be an agenda item in a future meeting.
Oh,
Sure.
All right.
The third thing is, and I think just to keep in context, when you get into a litigation situation, that's at the end of litigation, and the two parties settle, and then they end up in an anti-disparagement. In this situation, it seems to me that the simplest solution is for the manager to call some of these consultants and say, let's be.
Doesn't that presume none of us knows any of the facts except one person at this
I'm
time?
I'm just
If
saying
that's
what
even
I've been
facts.
able to figure out from other public agencies.
I would just
Yeah.
prefer that we not accede to the notion that anything has been put before us that we have any material knowledge of.
And I'd like to make a comment that, we have a general manager who handles these, or who handles the contractors and handles the bid. It's Rob's job to handle these people and to handle these issues. I don't think the director should become involved in these things, and if you want to, if you have a complaint or comment, address it to the general manager. He handles the contractors and the engineers and the staff. That's what we have a general manager for.
That's good, because I have no idea what's being talked about.
I don't either, but it's a general, so, okay, Jim.
Anyhow, that's my report. If you want to go into a policy, I'm happy to prepare one. Otherwise, why don't you maybe see what happens for a while, see.
It sounds like this was a one-off thing, and I don't know that we need policies to take care of a
Case
one-off.
by case.
If that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay?
So we're going on to
What's that crap?
director's report? Any director's report?
I got a report.
For items for future agenda, agendas. Rick, go ahead.
Thank you.
Walczak.
Sure, couple things. One, I just was disappointed. You know what, we're adults, we're professionals, and we should have a code of conduct amongst ourselves to work things through. There's filibustering going on, we're gonna kick you out of your chair seat, and that's just such baloney. It's immature, and I expect better of this group. I expect better of an average adult. And that's my confidence group, so next time, I hope you do a little bit better, because I wasn't happy tonight.
Okay.
That's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you.
Rick,
Laura?
two quick reports. One, the county has sponsored 2 big meetings on sea level rise. After that, they've now formed an actual commission, and it's in, I think, 3 parts. The first meeting is this Friday. I don't know exactly where it is, but I'm on the commission.
Okay.
So I'll try to get information back to this agency on everything that they bring up. I can report back, but the first big meeting is this Friday.
Is this an open meeting?
Yes.
Can you send out information about it?
I'll do that. It's over the hill.
Okay.
Alan, do you want to talk about the LAFCO, or do we I just wanted to mention that they're going to be moving forward with the Harbor District thing at LAFCO, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how familiar you are all with LAFCO, but basically, periodically, I don't know if it's every couple of years, they do a municipal service review, an MSR.
It's supposed to be every 5 years, but they're accelerating this one again.
And basically, the intent is to look at a special district, or even a city, and decide if there's not a more efficient way to do things. So obviously with the grand jury report in hand, the municipal service report on the harbor district is gonna be looking at what are the alternatives. Would it be better for the county to run the harbor? Should South San Francisco take over Oyster Point? You know, what are the alternatives? And what benefits the people of the county the most? I think the one thing that we'll probably end up doing is getting an outside consultant, just so that there's no feeling of favoritism or anything of that nature. But it's obviously not gonna get done till after the election. And they've recommended, LAFCO in the past, dissolving the harbor district. It's gone to court, it's been thrown out, this has been going on for a long time. It'll be very interesting to see what happens, especially, you know, after the election's over, but this is gonna take quite a while.
Well, that time it was on a technicality that can't occur again.
Yeah.
That's okay. But also,
Well, there could be a new technicality.
like they did here several years ago, and they did sort of the coast side, they're now launching another one for the North County, which includes the cities and all the special districts up there also. So that's gonna be a biggie, and it's gonna take months and months, but we'll.
Yeah. And there's a lot of little pockets of interest. I don't know if you know, up in the North County, there is one of the few police districts in the state of California.
It's the only one.
Broadmoor.
It's the only active one.
Okay, only active, thank you. And my son actually got a certification through Broadmoor. And the people up there, they love their little police department. Could they be better served by getting absorbed into Daly City? Probably, but they love their little independent police district up there.
They're
All right.
the expert for it.
Okay,
That's it.
Through, okay, any other directors? Scott?
So, Rick, I appreciate, I didn't much care for what happened tonight either. But I'll tell you that recycled water is one of the biggest things that we have been trying to get done here for quite a long time. And I take this very seriously, and I apologize again to everyone for the fact that, I'm sorry, I didn't get my part of it done, but I'm going to point out that the lack of feedback is not agreement. As much as anyone may want it to be, it simply isn't. And so it's just a mistake to come in and say, you know, we had agreement coming in. But it's also a mistake to say that the committee has to have full agreement for this board to be able to hear and discuss something of such grave importance to not only us, but our neighboring agencies. And I do believe that the committee, while it needs to bring something as coherent as possible, we actually had 2 of the 3 committee members agreeing that one of the forms was prepared sufficiently to take back to the table to discuss with the others. And the purpose here in discussing at the full board, see, we could have said the committee will go back to the water agencies and say, we think something's good enough after we had whittled away on it. But we're actually here tonight and had the opportunity to discuss whether or not the principles that were embodied in any one of those forms actually captured what we as an agency felt was vital to the interests of ourselves and what we perceive to be fair to the interests of our working partners. Now, we passed on that opportunity tonight, but not for lack of me wanting to drive that and Rick wanting to drive that. I don't know why suggesting taking that back was met with such vociferous pushback. But I don't think it's facilitated by cutting off members and saying we're done with the conversation. The chair that we choose to preside over the meetings is here to facilitate discussion, not to limit debate. And I understand the desire to get through things and to get to some conclusion. We actually had something to offer, but instead we found that cut off tonight. And cutting off board members who are elected officials representing thousands of people doesn't serve the public interest. And I don't like the way it went tonight, but it's not going to go any better by saying everybody put a zipper on your mouth. We're elected to do this job. And this recycled water thing is worth the effort that it takes to have some of these discussions right here at the full board. I like it when the committee can drive and get a whole bunch of stuff done. The fact of the matter is that's extra time on top of what we're already doing. And sometimes it comes together beautifully and sometimes not as well. And this time it's on me that we hadn't finished our discussion at the committee level, but that should in no way preclude us from, as a board, seeing if there is something that we can actually find agreement on tonight. We had various forums. 2 of us are recommending one of those forums. That's not chaos, and it's not the end of the world, and it's not the failure to do the committee's work other than deciding are we going with Form A or Form D. So we had some disagreement on that. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have a conversation about why that was an issue, but I really want you to hear that I think it's vital that we, as SAM, discuss SAM's interests as SAM, because it's altogether too easy when we're sitting at the table with our working partners to sit back and listen instead of actively participate in trying to drive this thing forward to a rapid conclusion. I think we've got a great project. I think we have some excellent working partners who are ready to go. I think we have some things that we can get done and done soon. I will do my dead level best to try to not leave homework undone next time, but I don't see any reason that should have slowed us down tonight. And I apologize for raising my voice, but as an elected official, when I see things like a suggestion, and I think it's not intentional, but a suggestion that a committee that represents 4 votes out of 8 confer with the chair, which would make it 5, that's a Brown Act problem. We simply can't do that. Somebody has to speak up and say, nope, sorry, we can't do that. And the chair isn't the boss of the board. The chair is the one who facilitates the work of the board, facilitates the discussion. If we've lost clarity on that, we as a board have a responsibility to reaffirm that. This isn't about filibustering, this is about doing some really important work. There I've said my piece, and I appreciate you letting me have my say on that.
Okay, I'm gonna give a report. You know something, we are elected officials here. Our time here is important. I spend my extra time here as all of you do. We have committees, we have ad hoc committees. It's important that all board members make the best effort they can to attend committees and ad hoc committees. If you miss one, that's fine, but if you miss a couple in a row and you don't attend, you're wasting the board's time, you're wasting the people in this community, you're wasting their time. So please, I'm asking all board members to make the best effort you can to attend the committees, the ad hoc committees. If you can't attend the committees, then contact the committee chair and find out what happened, what you missed, and communicate with the committee chair so that when you come to the board, the committee may not agree, doesn't have to agree, but it can present data, can present their ideas in a orderly fashion and not have a heated debate about accusing people of not doing this or not doing that. The ad hoc committee should report to the board, to the SAM board, in a reasonable way. And again, if you can't attend the meetings, then communicate at least with your fellow board member, the chair. So I take back my statement that you have to report to the board, but I want to tell you that it's important that the committees act in a responsible way, so we don't repeat this. All right, any public comment?
Can I make a final statement, a very short one?
Go ahead.
I support the recycled water project, and I'm enthusiastic for it to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there's no public comment, the meeting is adjourned at 9:50. Thank you.
Now we're just going